what's going on, Midnight Strikers? Welcome back to another classic review, and today we're going to take a look at an album by Alice in Chains entitled Dirt, which was released in the pinnacle of the grunge era, or at least when it was starting to get its footing in 1992. Now, this is not their first album. They already had an album entitled Facelift out, which such classics as Man in a Box and We Die Young. So, how are they going to top that album? Well, by releasing an even grungier album, that is Dirt. Now, this one gets a little bit into the sort of dreary, kind of slower and more melodic, and just more harmonic kind of music and kind of grunge versus Facelift, where everything was just kind of heavy and normalized in terms of tempo and speed and, of course, melodies in the guitar parts. So basically this is a slower album. This is a more atmospheric album. They were going for a little bit more kind of a slower grunge with a lot of vocal harmonies thrown in there that they kind of took off of such classics as Sea of Sorrow on their debut album, Facelift. So basically, after a slew of EPs, they released this album, which is Dirt, like I said. So let's get into Dirt. Let's get the dirt on dirt. Yes, I know that was cliche, but I had to say it because, you know, it kind of fits. So basically, the first song on here, you should already know, it kicks off with Them Bones, which begins with a really kind of dreary guitar melody, as well as some drums thrown in there, and Lane Staley just screaming, ah! You know, you guys already know it. It's a lot lighter than the Guitar Hero version, but then again, this version is a lot more atmospheric, and it sounds better with the vocal harmonies. I don't know what they were thinking with the singer on that version, but it's just not as good. But then again, usually these kinds of things aren't, so I digress. Basically, this has a little bit of a guitar solo in there. This is probably the most hard rock you're going to find on this album, because everything else is more reliant on the atmospheric, slower, drearier, you know, more melodic stuff. But then again, you know, this is a very good song, if not one of the best songs on this album. The next one is Damn That River. Again, more of the hard rockish kind of vibe. It begins with an awesome kind of, you know, mid-tempo riff, and man, does Lane Staley have some great grit on this song. I mean, the way he sings the chorus, so you couldn't damn that river, well, I don't give a damn anyway. You know, it's like kind of that nonsensical lyrics. I don't really know what they're talking about, but, you know, it sounds good, and everything is just up to par with the musicianship, and it's just a good song overall. One of my favorites on here, Rain When I Die. This one is a little bit more reliant on the vocal harmonics, as I mentioned before, with the vocal harmonies between, I believe it's Jerry Cantrell and Lane Staley. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section, but that is who I believe does the vocal harmonies on this album, let alone this song, which is very good. So Rain When I Die, this is more of a mid-tempo, if a little bit on the slower side kind of song. I do like it, and it's not really one of my favorite songs on here, because, you know, usually the more easier accessible songs on here, the easier accessible songs on here, I love that word, I'm probably going to use it, but Them Bones, Rooster, Damn That River, Angry Chair, those kind of songs are basically kind of my favorite songs on here. They're a little bit easier to access when it comes to just, you know, listening, jamming out, but when I'm kind of in that mood, kind of in that atmospheric mood, just want to listen to something to kind of set the mood a little bit, I'm going to listen to Rain When I Die, or at least would. So the next song on here is Down in a Hole, and this one I can't really get into that much. It just kind of drags on for a little bit. Not necessarily the fact that I don't like it, but it's a little bit boring to listen to at times. So, the next song is Sick Man. The vocals are really weird in it, but it begins with a interesting drum pitch. I really like the drums in the beginning and throughout the entire song, of course, but, you know, it does get a little bit, you know, does get a little bit overblown at times, and it runs on for a little bit too long, but when it comes down to it, this is one of the better songs on the album, just sheerly for its interesting yet weird sound. So Rooster, you guys all know it, it's very atmospheric, it's very dreary, it has those lower tune guitars, it's just grunge at its finest. I really like, you know, the beginning, just chanting, woo, 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 that stuff. Please forgive my, you know, bad interpretation of the song, but I just really like that part. I love just how Lane Staley sings kind of in a lower pitch, yet not necessarily, you know, just screaming it out, but it sounds really good for what it is. Junkhead, this is another good one. I really like the guitars, and Dirt, the next one. This is interesting. I really like the guitar melody in the beginning. Just the intro is very melodic, very dreary, as I said before, and just kind of gets, you know, sets the tone for what is to be this song. It is, of course, the title track, but it's not necessarily one of the best songs on the album, per se. So I really do like it, though, and it's, you know, I really like the guitars, the intro, and even the vocals at times are just really good at just setting that atmospheric kind of, you know, set you in that zen sort of mood, I suppose, just to kind of listen to. A lot of these songs, you know, I can see where The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here definitely got a lot of influence from, and that was this album, because there's just a lot of really atmospheric stuff on here. And I can listen to, say, you know, Rain When I Die, and definitely hear where Stoned came from, where the influence of Stoned came from. And it's really interesting to just kind of sit back and pick out each and every little melody and say, you know, I knew where that came from, you know, it's just interesting. So the next song is, of course, Godsmack, and this is where Godsmack, the band Godsmack, got their name from, was this song. And it's another really weird one, especially with the vocals and how Lane Staley sings it, but it's really good. It's really good because it's so weird, and I just really like kind of the frantic guitars, and it's a little bit of a mid-tempo song as well, not necessarily too heavy. It's, in fact, if anything, it sounds stripped down, especially with all the, you know, moody stuff going on previously. So, Hate to Feel, this is one that really took me a while to get into because it's a little bit slower, but after I actually found something to like about it, like just how the guitars, you know, go in with the vocal harmonies a bit, I really got into this song. And let me tell you, it's, you know, one of my favorites on the album. So, Angry Chair, this is another one that's one of my favorites. It's one of their biggest classic hits, and it's pretty much just straight up grunge at its finest. I mean, I really like the chanting, the vocal harmonies are a little bit lower key as well, and it just kind of blends with the guitars and the drums just perfectly. It's, like I said, more of a mid-tempo song, but the vocal harmonies are what really make it. So Wood, kind of the same thing, although it sets in a little bit more of an atmospheric tone, much like the previous songs, you know, Down in a Hole, Sick Man, Rain When I Die, like those, but it's a little bit more sped up, and it's a little bit more upbeat in tempo, like, in tempo. So I really like the way, you know, Lane Staley sings it as well, and it just really sets off that kind of serious tone, just serious, very dark tone. So it's a perfect way to close off the album, and one of, if not my very favorite song on this album. So with that, I'm probably going to give this a straight up 9 out of 10. I really like this album, and anyone who is a fan of the band should definitely check it out. It is, if not my very favorite, it's probably my second favorite next to Black Gives Way to Blue. So with that, thank you very much for watching. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.